All right, everyone. Hello. How's it going? Welcome to the December Leading the Lean webinar training series. If you don't know me, my name is Eric Whitley, and we're doing something a little different this month. Going to use the camera and the studio and the mic. I'm at home here in my studio, just like most of you probably are at home. And if you're not, good for you being in the plant. Appreciate that. Thanks for all you do in manufacturing through these times. So we're really excited to have you here, and pretty excited to kind of go through this topic. I thought this month what we ought to do is kind of look at some basic stuff, charts and graphs, and maybe go through some of the features and functions in there. Kind of talk a little bit about what I think is important when we go and install and and when we look at the data, kind of show you what some of the charts and graphs that I think are important inside of Leading the Lean, and maybe look at some stuff that maybe you haven't seen. So going to go through that. Going to kind of bounce back and forth. This is going to be a little different. I'm not going to do all PowerPoint slides. As a matter of fact, most of my presentation today will be in our live demo site, so I can kind of walk through and show you those things. So if you see me kind of moving screens around, I apologize for that. Kind of in that demo mode a little bit today. Want to talk to you about some things that we've got coming down the pike here for you. I got a couple of announcements just to make sure that you guys are all aware. You know, we've done a lot of work on our YouTube content, done a lot of work on putting videos out there that you can share, that you can use, that you can learn from. So please go to Leading the Lean on YouTube. You can go into YouTube, search Leading the Lean. It'll pull up our channel. Like and subscribe to the channel, like and subscribe those videos that you'd like to see. And we'll keep generating. 2021 is going to be a great year for us, generating more content for you to use in your work, and being able to show people what Leading the Lean does, and kind of you know, what we do there. So go to that, please, for me, and like and subscribe to our channel as you go forward. The other thing that I really am excited to announce, and you may have seen this in our newsletter last month, sorry, is that we are launching a brand new online training platform. You can go find it at L2L.thinkific.com. That's think with a KIFIC.com. And go in there and check it out. Right now, the only one that we have on tap is the administrator training. So if you have any administrators that are in your facility that you want to get trained up, right now is a great time. We have an offer going, kind of a launching offer through the end of the year. You can get 50% off on that. So if you're interested in that, send us an email either to myself, Eric at L2L.com, or you can go to support@leadingthelean.com, or I'm sorry, support.leadingthelean.com. Send in a ticket and say, I'm interested in this, and we'll get you signed up. I'll get you a coupon, get you signed up for that administrator training. Look for in 2021, we're going to be, and I'm actually working on it now, we're going to be working on how to implement an entire total productive maintenance system inside of Leading the Lean, and the tools to use that for TPM. So look for that in 2021, hopefully before the first quarter is over, if I can get that done. So anyways, I'll be putting that together. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. For those of you that this might be your first time on a webinar here on Zoom, feel free, down in you'll see that there is a chat button. Gosh, go ahead and start typing in your chats, or there's a Q&A area. Go ahead and start typing in any questions that you may have. If there's a particular chart that you want to take a look at, I know we had a ticket yesterday for somebody. Gosh, maybe I'm not talking here a lot at home. I got a little frog in my throat here. I apologize. I know somebody called in and wanted to know a little bit about, the combination drill down report. So we'll be going through that. So if there are certain ones that you want to, please, type that in, and there are, we have panelists on here. So everybody in support is pretty much on the line today, and they can chime in at any point in time. I see them online. So if they have, kind of are looking at the chats and looking at the questions, and people are bringing in their questions and want to see certain stuff, they'll let me know. And then I'm also communicating with them on Slack as well. So we've got all that. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump in here. Again, I'm sharing my screen online, but I'm going to probably kind of jump back and forth between the live site. So as you see me coming in and off, I apologize for that, but just going to kind of make sure that we see everything in the live site. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Reports and charts, a pretty important feature of leading the lean. And the reason is because that's what we're about. We're about collecting data. We're about capturing that data. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do that. And maybe you've thought through this and maybe you haven't, but hopefully it'll give you a little more in-depth thought process on how we capture our data and why it's important, and really kind of make that tie between the data that you're looking at and then also the data that that you can see on the charts. Okay, so I want to kind of go into that. So here's my agenda for today. Basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about the reports and the kind of basics there, and then going to kind of focus in on the filters and the features, and then give you some examples and insights to some of the charts that I look at. Whether you guys know this or not, we do spend a pretty fair amount of time. I know myself and Curtis and Amy and John and Mark and Bob as well, and the other folks in support. We spend a fair amount of time as we have some time going into your sites, looking at your data and seeing how well you're doing. And so if you ever need some help in trying to figure out how well the plants are doing, because we believe that and we often see this, that we can go in and see your improvements after you've implemented leading the lean. And so that's part of our job, is to make sure that you guys are getting better every day, and we can go take a look at that. So so there are charts that we look at, and if you're interested in that, ask your rep. But I'm going to go through some of those today as well. Okay, and then going to talk about this, what we call saved reports, or we're going to change the name of that. We're actually going to call it Express Charts. We're going to change that so that we can begin to kind of tell people about this really, really cool feature in leading the lean that a lot of people use, but I guess they don't really realize how really nice it is, and really kind of the advantage that L2L brings when it comes to that save reports. And so you're going to see that begin to change on the software itself. It's going to go where you see saved reports. It's going to go to Express Charts here over the next couple of months. So you're going to see that. And then of course we're going to get into questions and answers. Okay. So let's jump right into the first topic here. I want to talk a little bit about reports and about the basic reports and kind of some insight to that. And the first thing that I want to talk about is, dispatch really is the foundational and the crux of leading the lean, and how we take our data. There are other places where we take data, but this is really the underpinning of the entire system. And it's really important to understand this. If you think, I always liken it to a 911 call. So if you think about a 911 emergency, engine 51, see the lady on the corner of First and Main with the cat stuck in the tree. If you think about that moment of a 911 call, when somebody calls in that moment, the amount of data that we begin to take in that moment really is phenomenal. We know exactly when the cat got stuck in the tree. We know where the location of the cat is. We know who called it in. We know how long the cat's been in the tree, who we sent out to get the cat out of the tree, maybe some of the tools that they use to get the cat out of the tree. All of that is captured in that moment of 911, what's your emergency? So we begin to capture that. And so this is really kind of the first piece of the data that we begin to capture. And you think about all of those things that we get out of that moment, we capture that in dispatches. And that's why we really like using dispatches for so many more things other than like downtime, which is really important. But it's important to use it for other things as well, because you're capturing all of that data as well in there. And so that's the first portion of data that we begin to capture, and we start to feed that in. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to think about it or ponder on it. I think about these things, about how technology has come so far that now we can actually capture a downtime event out on the shop floor on a mobile device. And then immediately, because of the cloud technology, because of SaaS technology, we immediately then can go grab that data and see it in real time and actually produce it out on the shop floor in real time. So that's pretty amazing for those of us that have been in manufacturing for quite a few years, to be able to see this technology now happening. We've always thought about it and we've wanted it, but it's actually now it's here. So dispatch is the first piece of that, being able to capture that data in real time and then take it and put it into a system to be able to again to use for your data. So if you think about, I mean, we talked about it in all those things that we capture in a dispatch, and what those things are that we capture. We're capturing all of this for a reason, and we're capturing it all so that we can actually go through the process of dumping it into the database, so that we can actually go pull it up at some point in time and look at it. And so reports and graphs inside of Leading the Lean actually uses that process to pull all of those data points that we're gathering during that dispatch. And so it's really important. And then on the other side of this is the operator portal as well, right? I've always said there are basically 5 foundational pieces of metric that we have to have. The time is the first one we capture in dispatch, but the other 5 that we have to capture, if you think about it, if you know what your customer demand is, if you know what the actual is that the production line built, if you know what scrap or rework is that you're building while you're producing that demand, if you know the labor that goes into producing that actual product, and then you know the downtime, there literally isn't any production metric that is used in the world today that you can't calculate without having those things. And so the really cool thing about the operator portal, and then tying it in with the time that comes on dispatch, is that all of that data is now fed in. And if you've been into the production settings, you know that then what we do with all that data in L2L is we start using it in the background to calculate all of these metrics. So you can see these real-time metrics, you can see your reports and graphs are being populated, and it's all doing that right in real time. And so Leading the Lean really is the only software on the market today that actually captures all 5 of those data points on a single screen and then uses them to calculate your metrics in the background. There are many systems that you can capture scrap on this one and labor on that one and downtime on that one, but nobody else captures all 5 of those at the same time and then allows you to go calculate that or actually do the calculations for you in the background. Okay. So it's really important to understand where that data comes from in Leading the Lean. Okay. So there's basically 3 types when we talk about reports and graphs, there's basically 3 types of reports and graphs inside of Leading the Lean. One is kind of the reports, and I'll show you this here in a second. Those history, the summary reports that we have, lists and answers to questions and stuff on there. If you have dispatch questions, and then those logs. The other kind of the category that's in there are the trends and the charts and the graphs, right? So we have a bunch of trend charts and a bunch of trend graphs that are in there. And then the third part is the Pareto analysis, which is another really nice feature in Leading the Lean if you guys have ever gotten in there and used that. And so I'm going to talk about all 3 of those here today, okay? So first thing off, let's talk about filters. Let's talk about using the filters and kind of walk through some of the, the finer things in using those filters, and maybe even kind of if you see some things that you have questions for, pop those questions in there. And if these guys that are on for being panelists think that's important to talk about at this point in time, you know, Curtis, John, you guys go ahead and jump in there and see if we need to answer it at this time, or if not, let's wait till the end and we'll try to go back and look at this stuff. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about these filters. So this is what I'm talking about when you go into reports, and I'm going to jump into the actual live site now, if that's okay. Pull this over. Hopefully everybody's seeing that okay. So here's our live site. This is our live demo site. And I assume that if somebody can't see that, they're going to let me know on chat, but I think they can. So we're talking about going into reports here. And the one that I always look at when we go into reports is I like to show off the occurrence Pareto. But let's talk about the filters here. This is up here. This is the Express chart. You're going to see this change. The name's going to be changing here fairly soon. Over to Express charts. So we're going to kind of skip over that. But if you begin to think about all of the reports that you can see in Leading the Lean, and then think about all of the options for filtering those out, and then think about all the dates, really it's mind-boggling the amount of possible pieces of data that you could pull up. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's calculable. You couldn't even try to figure it out, how many different variations of the data that you can see. But I want to talk a little bit, if you've not spent much time in here, I want to talk a little bit about the filters themselves. And the first thing I want to talk about is the drop-down menus, okay? So these drop-down menus are not necessarily what we call hierarchical. And what I mean by that is that if, let's say you go in and you choose assembly, you want to look at the stuff in assembly, right? You're going to pull up, it's not going to show all of the lines. It's going to pull up what I mean by not hierarchical, I mean, it doesn't show all the hierarchy all the time. So maybe was the wrong way to say it. When you pull up assembly, now you're going to see the assembly lines in here, right? So what I mean by is if you come in here and show all, now you're going to see, if I go into here, now you're going to see all the lines. So you can see that I can, if I have all, it's going to show everything. So I can go in and choose. The other thing that I want to be able to do is that if I go through here and let's say I choose assembly, and I only want to see the data from assembly line 1 and assembly line 4, I can do that as well. Okay. And so if you want to see everything, so depending on what, kind of what you are in the organization, let's say you want to see all lines and all of the data for the entire plant, you're going to go through and you're going to set that to all here. Okay. The other thing that you can do, and this is really important to understand, is that a lot of you have, when we went to go implement at your facilities, we talked about technologies and trades and these fields right here. And what I mean, and the reason why I'm focusing this is because here is where, if you have stuff in value streams, or if you use that field to categorize different machines or different processes or something like that, this is where that's really important, because on the back end, if you've created a value stream and then you've attached several different machines to it, now you're going to be able to come in here and pull that data up on those machines as well in that filter. So the reason why we create those fields is so that you can come in here and see those inside of the reports, right? Everything in Leading the Lean, I think I can say this with a lot of confidence, is that everything inside of Leading the Lean is put there for one reason: to capture data, and then for you to go get that data. So the more you put it into more categories that you're going to want to go see the data in, the better it's actually going to be for you when you go pull that data here. So think about it that way, right? And that's why it's so important that when we put all these fields in, cost centers and dispatches and stuff like that, that we don't generalize too much, because the reason why we're doing it is so that we can go pull the data. So we want to make sure that they're in good chunkable, is that a word? Chunkable data, so that we can actually go pull that data. Okay. So filters, as you go down, you can go down here. All right, let's talk a little bit about date ranges. Okay, so date ranges, these are kind of pre-canned date ranges, if you will, and you can go in and select those. And for most situations, this is very usable, and a lot of people will actually only use this stuff here. So you can do that. Last year is calendar date last year, right? So this, if I clicked last year, that would be for 2019, for another 7 days, 8 days, or whatever it is. Right here, these last bottom ones, 7 days from today, 365 from today, it is, those are there to look out. If you are launching dispatches to look out from today, think of it from a timestamp from right now, 7 days out or 10 days out. Anything that's due 10 days out from now that's launched into a dispatch, you're going to see that event. So if you're looking at it, let's say from a maintenance planner standpoint and saying, what do I have, 24 hours out from right now, or what do I have in the next 2 weeks that is already launched as the PM that I need to go look at? You can use that right there as well. Okay. Now, if you want to get very specific about start time and end time, then you will use your calendar here with the clock. Let me tell you why that's important. Because you have a feature down here called shelf time per day. What shelf time per day does is, let's say you want to go look at data. Let's say I want to know what my downtime is during startup, right? And my startup is, I have crews that come in at 5:30 in the morning. They start the production lines up, and it seems like startup really gets difficult till about 7:30, 8 o'clock, then things get up and they start running. So what I can do is I can come in here and I can say, I want to look at everything in startup. So I can go choose my time, let's say 6 o'clock. From 6 o'clock to, I'm going to come in here and say 9 o'clock. And then I choose shelf time per day. What my chart is going to do is it's only going to show me the things that have happened between 6 and 9 o'clock for the date range in which I chose here, right? So if I wanted to do, a week or 7 days, so I'm only looking at the things that have happened in between that shelf, if you will, that shelf time per day. Okay. So that's why this is important here to understand as well. Okay. In most filters, you're going to see this as well, where you can on your especially on your Paretos, you're going to see I can choose a bar chart here. I can choose a table, and I'll show you what those, everybody has seen those bar charts before. If you don't use this back to form button here over on the top right, that's a very good thing to do. I can do a table, so I can go look at that same data in table format, and it still works the same way, okay? Or I can go choose that in pie chart format, and I'm gonna see it in that way. So you choose how you wanna do that. And we'll talk a little, and while I'm here, let's talk a little bit about Pareto charts, right? Because whether I'm in bar chart, whether I'm in table, or whether I'm in pie chart, the one feature about the Pareto charts is that you're able to drill through that data. And so you put your cursor on the data set that you want to look at, and you're going to drill through that. Okay. A couple of other things while I'm here on this bar chart. I don't know if you guys have known this, but you can come down here and you can turn stuff off, and you can turn it on by clicking on the legend down here. So depending on what you want to see, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in charts in a little bit. And then across the top, you have all of these other categories that you can go take a look at. Okay. So that's a little bit about filters and how the filters work. Here, this closed dispatch is asking the system to only show you dispatches that have been closed out. So we get a lot of tickets where people are saying, hey, my data is wrong and it's not matching. And what will happen is that we'll look back and there'll be a dispatch that still is open way down on the bottom of the list, and it's running in the background, and it's skewing this data a lot. And so one of the ways to get around that is to use this closed dispatch feature to be able to just say, I only want to see the things that are closed, right? We talked about shelf time per day. And then over on your machines in your setup, there is a button inside the machine setup that says, is this a production machine or is it not? So is this a crane or maybe a forklift, or maybe, maybe it's a loading dock that you have in here as a machine and you want to set that as non-production. So then you can say, I want to include non-production machines in that, or I don't. And so you can turn that on and off. And then here you can just go in and say, I want to see everything. I want to show all. Okay. And then of course, when you hit display, it's going to display that. Let me show you one other thing while I'm in here, because if I go in here and I say, I want to see, I'm going to uncheck this and I want to see assembly, right? Sorry. I want to see assembly. And I want to go look at this data for assembly. Now it's only got one because I only chose one area, so I can drill into that. And I say, I like the occurrence chart, but I want to go back and I want to do, instead of doing that, I want to do a time chart for that. Notice that it holds that filter for you, and it'll do that while you're in this session. So you keep going back, you'll be able to do that. If you want to just clear that all out, you're just going to hit reset and it's going to clear everything out. But if you're looking at a particular line or a particular group of machines or something like that, or a dispatch or whatever that is, it's going to hold that there for you while you're in this session. So that's a really kind of a cool feature. Okay. So, and you're going to see throughout reports that different filters are going to show up a little bit different in some reports based on kind of what you're looking at. You're going to see things like where you can go, look at these reports on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in the trend charts and stuff like that. That's usually set up. And then just different reports are going to show up. Some have filters, some don't. So anyways, you're going to see some different stuff in there. And if you have any questions about those, kind of let us know. So, all right. So that's a little bit about filters. I see people are asking questions here and those guys are answering that. So that's great. And we'll kind of save those till the end there. Okay. All right. So let's go in here and we'll talk about the next subject here. And that's going to be some examples and kind of insights to some of the charts that I use. I'm not necessarily going to go through all those. Let me look at my time here. Okay. But let me just kind of, I'll jump in here and show you some of the ones that I like to look at. And maybe you've not thought about that before. Oh, I did want to show you. Let me show you one slide that I prepared here. So we talked about these three kind of groups, right? We have these reports and we have these lists, then we have those trend charts and those Pareto charts. And here's kind of a color code of where all of those are at. And all of them kind of act the same. Reports and lists, there are some variations in those. Up to the top right, if you haven't ever noticed that you can actually go to your dispatches, the dispatch screen here on the, on the top left of that screen, you can see that. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about those. So anyways, here's some of the charts. Let me talk to you. One of the probably the most used one, and one that we get a lot of questions about, is the summary report, or the weekly summary report. And the reason why that's really important is because you can actually go look and see, and you can add in products and you can add in shifts. And so You can go take a look at what happened during the week based on product, based on shift, based on time. All of that data is feeding over in there. So if you haven't used that one, this is a lot of people use this to go look. This is kind of the, hey, let me see what happened last week, or let me see what happened yesterday. This is the one that they use. So it's a pretty great, and it has a lot of stuff in here. If you're set up properly, it's calculating your OEE, and it's going to show you that for the day for that actually shift. The other thing here is that you can actually drill into that, and now it's going to take you to that production line. It's going to show you that line you're on as well. So you can drill into that data, and then of course, then you have access up here then to the operator portal and stuff like that. Okay, so something to look at there. That's a really kind of a cool report. Let me see what else. The other one that I look at from a, and these are kind of the reports, but this schedule summary for those of you that are in maintenance is a really kind of a great report to look at here, because it'll show you the schedules, so the PMs and the stuff like that of what's out there, what's past due, right? It's going to show you your totals and kind of your on time percentage. So if you're tracking on time percentage of PM completion rates and stuff like that, the schedule summary is a really good one to go take a look at as well, and kind of use to track your performance. And this is one I look at a lot to see if the organizations are making changes to the way that they're actually doing maintenance. For those of you who know me, or those of you who don't know me, sorry, my background is in maintenance. I've taught total productive maintenance for years. And so I'm really interested in how those organizations are doing in that. So this is a really nice report that I look at a lot. Along with this report, the other one that is really kind of important for me is this list right here, this unscheduled machine list. And what this is that this is a list of all your machine level data that does not have a schedule against it. And that means it doesn't have a PM against it. So you can go through, scrub your entire factory and say, hey, I've got a conveyor that doesn't have a schedule against it. I'm not doing a PM, so I'm missing that. And so I'm going to come in here and hit this schedule button. It's going to take me over to the scheduler, and then I can work my PM from there. So a really nice little feature there that helps, that helps the maintenance group out to understand, just to make sure that they're doing PMs on all of those pieces of equipment. Okay. Let's see. The other thing too, the other nice thing is dispatch questions. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this or if you're using this, but over in dispatch, you can create those custom questions, right, that go onto a dispatch here. When people answer those questions, that data goes right into this report right here. So you can come in and you can say, what question do I want to see the information on? And then I can display those results. So let's go display this one for the last 90 days. This is our demo site. So there we go. So we've gotten some answers here. So if I want to pull up data on temperature of something or whatever it is, the beautiful thing about dispatch questions is that it allows you to customize that question and then get your custom answers, and then you can go pull that. With this, then always remember that all of the data for any chart that you pull up, any chart or graph, is able to be exported. So if there is a report in here, and I know some of you are how do I want to say this, kung fu masters at Excel, and so you like to do other stuff, or if you want to put it into Power BI or put it into some other type of format, all of that data, wherever you are in the system, you can always export the data that creates your charts and graphs by going to that export. Okay. All right. A couple other ones here. I know somebody asked about the combination drill down report. So I want to talk a little bit about this report. This one is above and beyond kind of all the other types of charts, because its ability, its ability to do things is pretty cool, because there's a lot of things that you can get to here on this chart and graph. But there's a few things that you have to understand on how this thing works. So much like the other charts and graphs, it works kind of the same way, where you can come in and you can give it, you know, the date range that you want and stuff like that. You can do shelf time, you can do include production machinery, non-production machinery, right? But you watch as this thing, as you change, it begins to morph and change kind of right in front of you. So that's really kind of cool. Let me show you a couple of things, kind of a little bit difficult to understand. When we talk about this pound sign here, what we're talking about is occurrences. So this is the number of dispatches created. If you want to look at time, you come over here to minutes, and it'll pull up in minutes. So if you want to look at occurrences and dispatches, or if you want to look in minutes and dispatches, you change this right here, okay? The other thing that it has on here is this SIG. So in Leading Lean, SIG stands for significant event. If you recall, in setup, there is a place for you to go set this threshold. You can say, listen, I think for our plant, a significant event is 8 hours, so 480 minutes. So you can say 480 minutes, and you can do it by machine. When there is a significant event, you can go tell this chart, show me the data on those significant events. I only want to see things that are over that 480 minute threshold, right? And so it will do that. And I want to look at it in minutes. So I can go change that. And you'll notice that as you come in here, you can drill down in through this as well, okay? And see this over here, it's actually changing. My filters are changing here. So I can change those filters in here, okay? So I can change that here. I can go look at, if I want to look at the welder only here, I can do that. So there's just a bunch of different ways to come in here and set this stuff up, and I can click that stuff on and turn it off. So it's a little more dynamic than all the other charts. So that's kind of how you use the drill down report, okay? And then I'm sure we may get more questions on that for the end of this as well. So I know we had somebody ask that question yesterday. All right, so let me go back over here and kind of go to the next topic. So that's some of the charts that I like to look at. Let's talk a little bit about express charts. Really, really cool feature in Leading Lean, probably the best feature when it comes to the charts. It's really kind of this little nondescript line across the top, but it really is, if you think about it, really is one of the greatest features inside of Leading Lean, because I want to tell you a little story. I was at a car factory, and I introduced this to a group of supervisors. I remember it was second shift. I was in there doing training to a group of supervisors in this car factory. And this lady, she stopped me and she says, so are you telling me that this thing can deliver my downtime charts right to me in my email? And I said, yeah. And she says, you don't understand what you've just done for me. And I'm like, okay, here it comes. I'm going to get a lashing here. And she says, every night I go home, I work here 10 hours. And every night I go home, I put my kids to bed. I grab a glass of wine. I take my laptop and I sit on my bed for 2 hours every night. And I compile all of my charts and I send it to my manager. And so what you just showed me is the ability that Leading Lean is going to do that for me. And I said, yeah. She said, you just gave me like 8 hours a week of my life back. Like I can go watch what I want on TV. I can do what I want with that. That's an amazing accomplishment. And so we're pretty, I think this feature is kind of underestimated a little bit when it comes to what it can actually do for you. So let me talk a little bit about that. Okay. So let's say I want to do this Pareto chart, and let's say I want to look at assembly, and I want to look at blending, and I want to look at the press department. So these are my 3 departments that I look at. And every Monday morning for last week, I have to create a chart for my boss, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this filter. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the filter, and I'm going to say, all right, so this is if I can type here, looking past so this is Eric's weekly downtime, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to save this. Now I've saved that. So what's really cool is if I want to, if I come in here and I have a clear filter and I want to go pull that thing up, I can say, here it is right here, right? So it pulls it up for me. The next thing I can do now is that once I have this, I can then go schedule this thing and say, you know, this is, we'll just call it Eric's weekly downtime. And I want my boss, in this case, I want Mark to receive this. He needs it at 7 o'clock on Monday morning. And so I'm going to start off and say he needs it Monday morning. He needs it at 7 o'clock. Matter of fact, I want to get it to him a little bit before that. So I'm going to say 6:55 is when it's going to show up into his inbox. And so then I'm going to say weekly. Now, when I save this, what I've just told the system is that every week I want you to compile this data at 6:55 and send it to Mark to his inbox. And so he gets it in his inbox. I know I'm talking, kind of preaching to the choir here a little bit, but you guys understand this. But if you haven't used this, this is an amazing thing. Gone are your spreadsheets, gone are your pivot tables, gone are you having to worry about this on Monday morning. I'm just, the amount of stress that this thing alleviates is incredible. So it really is something amazing when it comes to compiling that data. So it really is a cool little feature and a cool little tool, and that's why we're renaming it, because I think we should, you know, from a leading the lean standpoint, we need to be touting it a lot more. And I just wanted to give it a name, and so that's why we're doing it. So anyway, so that's that feature, and then this will show up in your inbox. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you come over here to the far top right and you look, you will see here you have reports. And so you pull that up and you can see the reports that are scheduled for you or that you've done. So if you ever want to get to this screen quickly, you can come right in here and use this over here, your personal information, and find that. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about Express Charts. Very, very cool tool. Very nice to use. You should be using it a lot because there's a ton of data that you can pull up. You can see it just a ton of different ways. So anyways, so that's a great little tool. Now let me go in here and go to Q&A. So I'm going to ask my panelists who are on here, were there any questions that came in that I didn't answer? And if not, what else can I answer for you? So you guys on the other line, was there any questions that came in for me during the time?
Yeah, Eric, there was one, Bob had one that just talked about when you're using the chart frequency, can they set it up to run every week? And I think you just showed that. So that was a perfect timing for that one.
Good, good. You know, one thing that I didn't cover on that, and it's kind of an an apology type of thing here a little bit for this, is that, and we've gotten a lot of these questions that I was gonna kind of cover. One thing that we can't do, that a lot of people ask, is I set this here. So let's go look at a trend chart, if you will. I'm going to look at this downtime trend chart, and I'm going to look at all of this stuff. And let me go back here. Sorry, I apologize. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that when you look at these trend charts and you have a lot of data, and of course I'm riffing here, so now I'm kind of off base here, but you can turn these things on and you can turn them off. And a lot of people ask, hey, can you send me that chart after I've turned these things off and turned them on, or I found this detail? And unfortunately, we can't. Whenever you set that form here, this is what it looks at and sets that form. The other thing that I wanted to show you that I forgot to show you is our little hamburger thing over here. So let's say you go in and you find an occurrence Pareto, and you go through this occurrence Pareto and you say, you know, this is the chart that I really want, not the one that I have back on the form. So I want to send that. You come up here and you can click on that and you can schedule that and save that as a template. You can also download these, and I do this quite often, download these as images so that you can just paste them right into a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. So that's what this little feature is over here for as well. It does the same thing as the Express charts over here. But you can also download those and print that chart if you want to as well. So, okay. All right. David Pugh says, is there any plan to add the ability to merge chart templates into one email so that it doesn't have to be separate emails? So I think Devin, what he was talking about here, and I think this is the same question, David. I don't think we've talked about this so that you can say, send all these to the same person in one email, all these 3 different charts. I don't think we've actually talked about that. So this is the first time from your question last week that we've actually heard that. So you know how that kind of works. And so we just we're kind of, you know, we get that into the bloodstream and start talking about it, whether that's a good idea or not, and then go from there. So anyways, to answer your question there, David. So other questions?
There was a question earlier asking about production start time. So maybe you could talk about production reports and how we use production start time in those reports.
Gotcha. So one of the reports that we use here is that if you come in here and you ask the system to show me a day's worth of information, it's going to look at that production start time that you have back over on the in the production setup. So when we say a day in Leading Lean, there are certain situations where we use either the production start time or we use the actual date. So it just depends on what you're looking at. But while we're here on this topic, I want to talk a little bit about these charts here. If you haven't used these charts right here, these were actually made for us, because when we look at your systems and try to see if you're getting better, we never know. We don't have information on like whether your production has went down or sales are up or down or whatever. So what we like to look at is we like to compare it per part. So whether you're building 10 or whether you're building 10 million, we can measure apples to apples. And that's what these per part charts do. And what's really cool about these is that they allow you to scale based on, you know, if you're making mattresses or if you're making, you know, 100,000 cans a day, you can scale your data in order to be able to look at that. And so these are really cool charts to use there as well. So, all right, I think I'm about out of time. Any other questions from the group.
Yeah, here's one that's probably on everybody's mind.
Yep.
How is Elvis, and have you seen him lately?
Elvis is good. I talked to him just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, he's doing well. And he says hello and Merry Christmas. So anyways, anything else? Checklist SPC chart is misnamed. I would like an X bar or R bar chart visible in the operator portal so the operators can make it real time. Can this be done? John, the answer to that question is yes, it can be done. But that's a great idea to be able to see X bar R charts there from that. So again, we'll talk about that and bring that up with your rep, and we'll go from there. So the answer, yeah, just so everybody knows, the answer is always yes, it can be done. Technically, we can do all that stuff, but it's a matter of where it falls in the priority, a matter of where it falls on the list, and getting it done. So let's talk with your rep about that, and then we'll go from there. So, other questions? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up and tell everybody to have an absolute safe and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, and enjoy your time with your family. Let's all hope and pray for a much better 2021. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. And we're looking forward to working with you all. So everybody, thank you for joining today. If you have any questions, please send me an email, eric.whitley@L2L or support@L2L.com. And we'll try to get them answered. So thanks a bunch, and we'll talk to you all later.